In the 1940s, the Jewish people did not have a Jewish state, and Nazis killed over 6 million, almost 7 million Jews. And now there is a Jewish state, and the Jewish state's primary reason for existence is to protect Jews in a very hostile world. What's going on now with Hamas and Gaza and so many other various Muslim and Arab groups like Iran, which calls for the destruction of Israel, ISIS, which says they're going to march on Israel, and most of all Hamas right now, is the most disgusting kind of evil and anti-Semitism. And Israel has to fight with all of its strength to eradicate it. So Israel's sitting there. They pulled out of Gaza completely, and they've gotten nothing but missiles, thousands of missiles thrown at them, 100 a day recently. What country on earth would put up with missiles being fired at it? No country would. And no country would act as ethically and decently as Israel has to stop it. And the hundreds of millions of dollars a year the United States gives to the Palestinians, you know what they did with it? They build tunnels underground, evidently, just cost hundreds of millions of dollars, to try and sneak into Israel to kill Jews. And Iran and other countries are smuggling weapons into them and missiles into them. Thank God Muslim Brotherhood is no longer in charge of Egypt, because the tunnels between Egypt and Gaza were bringing all those missiles in. And so with thousands of missiles being fired at Israel, Israel had no choice but to bomb and then to send in troops. And they've acted in a way more ethical than any other country in the history of humankind. They call and they text and they send leaflets saying, don't leave. But you know why there are so many casualties? 100% Hamas's fault. First of all, if Hamas would stop sending missiles and stop sending their war crime without uniform soldiers and war crime soldiers wearing Israeli uniforms into Israel to kill Jews and stop sending missiles, this would be over in a second. So all of the casualties are on Hamas. But in addition to that, they use human shields. They set up their weapons from the middle of a group of kids. They transport their missiles in ambulances surrounded by children. When Israel sends leaflets saying, leave a building, Hamas says, don't you leave a building or we'll kill you. They hide their missiles and shoot their missiles from schools and mosques and churches and hospitals. They are committing war crimes every minute. It's a disgusting, evil, pernicious group, and as many should be killed as possible. That's the only solution here. Now, Hamas's whole existence is a war crime. Their charter calls for the death of Jews and the destruction of Israel. The whole idea of Hamas is a war crime. And yet, so much of the world blames Israel. Oh, and the Secretary of the United States, John Kerry, made this comment when he thought the mic was off about, making fun of the Israeli pinpoint operation. Well, excuse me, Mr. Kerry, who threw away his medals from Vietnam and derides the U.S. military all the time. You think you could do a better job when your enemy is so close to you and they're sending off their missiles from hospitals and mosques and schools, and you send leaflets saying leave, and their army says if you do leave, we'll kill you? So a lot you can say about this. And your demand for an immediate ceasefire is just another anti-Semitic act, because Israel has got to finish the job that they start. Because they can't live with this. No country on earth would live with this. What did the United States do to Japan when Japan attacked us at Pearl Harbor? We carpet-bombed Japanese cities, and we nuked too. When Germany bombed London, what did Britain do? They carpet-bombed German cities. Israel is acting far more ethically than the Western countries did in the past. 150,000 people have died in the Syrian civil war. Does the newspaper say boo? 2,000 Palestinians have died in that Syrian civil war. Have the newspapers said boo? Does anybody even know about that? But the Jewish people are trying to defend themselves, and everybody's running around saying, they're acting horribly, they're acting disproportionate, these idiots in college campuses that do a die-in. Why don't you focus your energy on Hamas, the ones sending missiles at indiscriminate Jewish targets to kill as many Jews as possible? Why don't you focus your energy at Hamas, who says they want to kill Jews and destroy Israel? You know why you don't? Because you're anti-Semitic. And now we know. It's crystal clear. And all those Jewish groups who said that the problem with Israel is its settlements, or you see clearly how foolish you were. It's not about any of that. It's about the very existence of a Jewish state. And don't think that Abbas and the Fatah are any better. Fatah routinely honors and Abbas routinely honors murderers. somewhere between 30 and 40% of the Palestinians admit to approving suicide bombing. Their curriculum still teaches kindergartners to kill Jews. Abbas says he'll never accept a Jewish state. Abbas says he'll never allow Jews to live in land of the future Palestinian state where Jews have lived since the beginning of the Bible. And they lie and lie and lie about the Jewish existence in there. So Abbas is no better. Just today they're not sending missiles. And you think the Jewish people, the state of Israel, could survive allowing there to be a sovereign Muslim state within inches of Jerusalem, within such a short distance to the airport, where Israel would be 9 miles wide? If they did that, how crazy is that, given the situation today? And so for all of those who are attacking Israel, it's clear that it's because of anti-Semitism. Israel is doing everything it can to prevent civilian casualties. Hamas is doing everything it can to exacerbate their own casualties because they want to have more and more and more Palestinian dead so that the world will blame Israel. And Israel is doing everything it can to prevent it, even though it's doing what it has to do. In fact, it's costing Israeli soldiers lives. It'd be a lot easier not to telegraph your enemy and tell them where you're going to be, but Israel's doing that to try and protect civilian citizens. Now, this is not a war against Palestinians. This is not a war against Arabs. This is a war against evil. Israel is the canary in the coal mine for the West. If Israel doesn't stop terrorism, what's going to happen? ISIS already has taken over Iraq because the United States pulled out so fast, and they're on the Golan border with Syria. ISIS soldiers are in Gaza right now, and they say next we'll see in New York, we'll see in Jerusalem, we'll see in Rome. Islamic terror has got to be stopped. It's got to be fought, and Israel happens to be on the front line right now. So instead of our president of the United States equivocating all the time and bemoaning Hamas casualties, why don't you put the blame where the blame should be, with Hamas, which is sending its citizens to die, putting them in harm's way, instead of trying to protect them. You know, all those they say, well, why, how come Hamas doesn't have bomb shelters? They do. They're called tunnels. But instead of putting their citizens in there for protection, they put the missiles in there, and then they run in there to try and get into Israel surreptitiously so they can kill Jews. Hamas's charter calls for the destruction of Israel and dead Jews. They're sending missiles indiscriminately into Israel to kill as many Jews as possible with war crimes. Their soldiers dress in Israeli uniforms is a war crime. They commit child abuse every day when their curriculum teaches 5-year-olds to hate Jews. Hamas is just one big war crime. They're fighting in an uncivilized, barbaric way, and Israel has to deal with it. These are young Jewish boys and girls who have to defend their families, and just because the world got used to Jews not having any power, not being able to defend themselves, today there is Jewish power, and Jews are going to defend themselves, and Jewish blood is not going to be cheap anymore. So get used to it, world.